Greetings. So before every NHL season, they have sort of their State of the Union and press conference. And this year, of course, it's different. It's a Zoom call. And so you have Daly, you have Bettman, and you have others on the call as well, medical professionals. Colin Campbell's on the call as well. And so there were notes I was seeing from around Twitter, and then I thought, all right, well, I'll just go over to Sportsnet and watch it. So I watched the last half of it and caught notes from the start of it, including that owners are losing more by playing this season than they would if they shut it down. The one thing that drives me nuts is, and I've seen this on the channel, I've seen it on Twitter, I've seen it on Facebook, I've seen it on the internet, which is the owners are greedy and that's why we're playing hockey. If this was all about owners' greed, we would not be seeing hockey in 2 days. The owners lose money by playing. They would have made more money if they had just shut the league down for a year. This is actually money coming out of their pockets. And so, yeah, they lose a lot. And Bettman talked about, didn't give exact numbers, but gave a good example of just what the deal is. There will be no ads on jerseys. There's been no discussion of putting ads on jerseys. They don't want to put ads on jerseys. And it's not that they don't like money, because they do. They love money. I think they understand the amount of blowback they'll get from NHL fans if they put ads on jerseys. You can look at ads on helmets. It's fine. Half the time, I don't even notice the logo on the side of the helmet anyways. I mean, you know, for example, the Panthers one that they've been using, which is an updated version of the original logo, I just figured it's just the original logo, didn't pay much attention. So the logos on the helmets aren't really a big distraction. Logos on the boards, on the ice. And there's corporate logos all over in hockey. And if, again, I've mentioned this recently, if you go back to a game in the 80s and you watch that, you're not going to see that at all. There's none. So it's gradually crept into the game. But they understand that this jersey, you don't want to be messing with that. You don't want to be putting a bunch of logos and, you know, McDonald's in one corner and Subway in another, and then, you know, big Exxon on the shoulder. Like, they know you can't be doing that. So kudos to them for saying, no, we haven't even discussed it. Player and puck tracking will be in every arena to start the season. This is not information that apparently is going to be shared with the betting sites right out of the gate. And let the slippery slope begin. The slippery slope to being able to bet on absolutely everything in the game, which is fun, but there are people who have a gambling problem. And boy, howdy, is the NHL getting into a realm that it wasn't that long ago, right? It wasn't that long ago they were talking about, well, we don't know if we want a Vegas team because there's a whole gambling aspect, and then the team comes in from Las Vegas and makes a lot of money, and they go, maybe the gambling thing's okay. So that's where we're at, and the player and puck tracking is going to end up basically being this brand new way of doing advanced stats. I'm going to pay really close attention to this stuff too, because it's all digital. There's no eyeballs tracking it. So I think this will be more reliable than any of the stats we've had to this point. But we'll see. We'll see where any flaw might be with the technology. They'll figure it out quickly. Now, in terms of what they're looking at for this year, and the question was asked of, okay, so are you looking at, you know, filling the stadium? What's your plan? Are you going to end up filling the arenas by the end of the year? Bettman said basically they want to survive the season, get through the season with as few speed bumps as possible, roadblocks as possible, right? And you mix those and you get road bumps, which doesn't work. Doesn't sound appropriate. Look, there's road bumps. Why did you call it that? So they're looking to survive the season, award the cup, and then look to have the full season next year. Have everything okay for next year. And they're planning it as if no fans will be in attendance. This whole season is planned as if, okay, with no fans in attendance, this is what we're doing. And if they can get fans into attendance between now and the end of the year, great. It's going to be with local health officials. It's going to be with local governments. And it's going to be based on also the teams kind of having the right to say, you know what? Nah. So while the Tampa Bay Lightning could have fans in attendance, they've decided to back off on that because local numbers aren't great. And I think Nashville as well has decided we can, but we're not going to right out of the gate. They also have been in open consultation with other pro leagues in North America. This is interesting too, in that they have been consulting with other pro leagues on protocols, and we'll see where this goes in terms of do you see this continue after, you know, things eventually get back to normal. This consulting with other pro leagues on protocols and safety measures and whatnot So they're talking to the NFL, to the NBA, to Major League Baseball. They're all working together. Be nice to see some kind of a council of the four all together, right? You can call it a Legion of Doom situation or Super Friends, depends on your point of view. And then Ken Campbell asked about increasing the draft age, and here's the thing. It was an odd question when he asked it because I knew what the answer was going to be. If you want to increase the draft age, so the entry level age from 18 to 19, the players have to sign off on that. The owners have to sign off on that. If you raise the age from 18 to 19, you are creating essentially a dead draft. You are creating a year at the draft where the draft picks are going to be worth a heck of a lot less than they are any other season, because now you're drafting what mostly will be players who were passed over the year before. And I don't see the NHLPA signing off on it. I don't see 40 plus years after Ken Linsman got the age dropped to 18 any chance of it being raised to 19. And yeah, the fact the NHLPA has to agree to it means it's likely dead in the water. I can't see the players going, yeah, we should increase the draft age. I can't see it. And again, that would create a draft class that's just all overagers, right? The NHL is looking at the draft in light of the stoppages. So the question was asked of, so if players don't play, are you guys going to have like some kind of tournament of top prospects or something to get them all together in like a bubble environment? They didn't really give an answer to this because they don't really have an answer. And it's one of those things that I don't think they're overly concerned with. I think it's central scouting's going to have to figure things out, or this year's draft's going to be a big unknown. I'm leaning more towards this year's draft's going to be a big unknown, because logistically bringing all the players in that you'd have to in order to have the entire draft class scouted of guys that aren't playing hockey right now, and it's a lot of work. It's a lot of money, and I'm not sure where that money's coming from out of a league that's already losing a ton of money. And the question was asked again, and this is something I've seen around online. Gary Bettman says that gate, direct and indirect, is about 50% of revenues. So ticket prices, I've seen reported at 36%. And what he's saying is that this is tickets, concessions, parking, your suites in all the buildings. It ends up being about 50% of the revenues. So he said that what the NHL's losing this year by not having that is over $1 billion. And that, yes, if they'd canceled the season, they would not have lost over $1 billion. You still lose money, but you lose less. So he said teams are on board, owners are on board with the fact they're losing money. Now, I would throw in, and I've thrown in other videos before, the US TV agreement being up this year has to be one of those mitigating factors where they say, yeah, we'd lose less money, but we can make more money later if we make sure we're playing this year, and we can use that as negotiation going into the TV agreement. No matter what happens with NBC Sports, no matter what ESPN does or doesn't decide to do, they will make more money off that agreement by playing than they would if they didn't. So it may not be the huge raise that they're hoping for, but it'll still likely be more money. And as I said, if they didn't play at all this year, they really are in a bad negotiating position at that stage. The Sharks are supposed to meet with Santa Clara County tomorrow, and if they can't figure out a way to make this work, then there's the alternate venue that could be used. And that's why the schedule is so road heavy for San Jose to start the season, is to give them more of a lead time to hopefully be able to open their season at home early February. But I think the NHL is being realistic that probably doesn't happen. And so the Sharks will probably stay in Arizona. Now, whether that means they end up playing out of Gila River or wherever they end up playing out of, it'll be interesting to see what they do. There are other buildings they can use in Arizona as well. They were asked about the shortened schedule. Gary Bettman said he expects the intensity will be very high to start the season, and that with them all being divisional matchups, he expects it to feel like the playoffs all year. And he's kind of banking on that. So he said there should be a lot of intensity and a lot of excitement right out of the gate and all the way through the shortened season going into the playoffs. And he's excited about it. And then he also made the point, and Bill Daly's made this point recently too, it's a 31-team league. So as much as we may enjoy this, we will go back to a normal schedule next season. We will go back to the normal divisions next season. Enjoy this ride. It's something different. I thought it was interesting too that when they asked about the the schedule and the way that it's set up, he talked about mitigating the risk by dropping the amount of travel that teams need to do and keeping them in their regions, and the back-to-back games helping with that as well. Didn't really talk about, well, and the border's closed, so you have to set it up so everybody's the same. You can't have the Canadian teams playing all against each other, and then the American teams just, being able to play intra-division games. It just wouldn't work. It has to be all the same. It has to be an experience that's shared by every team. The bubble question was asked a couple of times during this, and basically it's this. The NHL never asked players to go into a bubble. Now, the NHL is saying, Bettman's saying, that it's too much of an ask that players would spend over 4 months away from family and loved ones and people they're close to. The other side of this, of course, which he didn't mention, is the amount of money that the NHL loses when they play in a bubble. On top of already losing this 50% of revenues, it basically means that the NHL wouldn't have income. It would increase deferrals. It would increase your escrow. It would just leave the league completely, basically broke. And so the bubble doesn't work. The bubble worked for the playoffs this year, so they got a Stanley Cup winner. Great. Now the plan is to play it out in all 31 buildings as best can be done, of course, with the Sharks being an exception. Now, with Lake Tahoe, of course, is, and as was said during this, closest to San Jose. Of all the teams in the league, that would be close for San Jose. And apparently they have reached out to the NHL. So San Jose is not one of the featured teams in the 2 games that are to be outdoors. And right now the NHL is not looking at having other games in Lake Tahoe or having an outdoor game for San Jose. But the Sharks were talking about having one for their fans, basically having one that they can put on that'll be on local TV. And so it's not like a nationwide broadcast, but a regional broadcast. And the NHL doesn't really, I would think that the amount of cost for that would probably be prohibitive for the NHL, unless it's going to be a big nationwide broadcast like the 2 Tahoe games are going to be. So they're not looking at it right now, but they didn't rule it out either. It's not like Bill Daly said, no, we won't do that. I think this is one of those things where if San Jose can't play at home for an extended period, say into March, let's just go that far, this into March, then maybe they come back and they look at Lake Tahoe and they go, you know what, we'll move these 2 games against, say, St. Louis, and we'll move them both to Lake Tahoe, just so that, San Jose's got something that feels kind of like, closer to home. But again, that's a moving target, and they didn't really say that it won't happen, just they're not looking at it right now. They were asked about the vaccine and the whole idea of NHLers cutting in line to get their own. A, it's not available for purchase. You can't buy the vaccine. And B, they are not line cutting. Bettman made it clear that they're not cutting in line. They're going to wait their turn until, players can be vaccinated, and that's going to depend by county. It's going to depend by, here in Canada, it's going to depend by province. It's going to depend by where you're at. And that they've never discussed line cutting. So he said that even though it came out that there was some talk about it, he said there never was. He said that it was never discussed that they would cut in line and try to get a vaccine ahead of somebody else who may need it more. So he said they will not get that at a time where they're not supposed to. And Bill Daly also was asked about the negotiations to play in all the provinces. Nothing but complimentary about the Canadian protocol negotiations with the provinces, with the federal government, and said it was a very good process. They took their time. They sent back their suggestions, and he said basically they implemented virtually all the suggestions that health ministers and that people with the government were making. So everything coming out of this sounds great. So everything coming out of this sounds like it's organized, they got it all figured out, and that there's still some moving targets in this. But they know there's going to be outbreaks during the season. I think the best thing we can do as fans is not to panic. And they know that there's going to be challenges and hiccups along the way, but or road bumps, right? And so we'll see what happens. But hey, 2 days from now, the season starts. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below as always. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe. If you're browsing your way through, you just happen upon this video. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll talk to you again soon.